Today we're going to be going over a middle grade book. Not something I usually do. All right, so today we're going to be going over a book called Pax by Sarah Pennypacker. And this book was, or is, my 11-year-old daughter's, like, one of her favorite books. So she's read it like a ton. And I finally said, you know what, I'll read this with you. So I was able to read that. And just really, I did enjoy it. So I'm glad that she wanted me to read it, because now I get to talk to you guys about it. This is a middle grade book again, and it's about a boy named Peter and his pet fox named Pax. Shout out to Pax Panic. I just, I'm friends with her on BookTube, and it's just funny that this fox's name is Pax. And I can't actually, dang it, I don't have the book on me, but there's a reason why he called it Pax, and I can't remember what it was. It doesn't really matter. But, so at the start of the story, his father has to go off to war, and he tells Peter that he pretty much has to get rid of the fox because he's going to go live with his grandpa. And so they live like 200 plus miles away from their grandfather, from Peter's grandfather, and they drop the fox off in the woods, like pretty much like right after they leave the house, like a few miles down the road or whatever. So then they get to their grandfather's house, and Peter, he's fine at first, but then he's like, I can't do this. Like, he's going to bed, and he's like, you know what? Nope. I have to go find Pax. And his father's already like shipped off to war pretty much. And he just says he like leaves a note for his grandfather, says he's going to school, and then he just starts walking through the woods to go find his fox Pax. And what's really cool about this book is that each chapter is either a POV of Peter or of Pax. So you get like inside Pax's head. And it's obviously a little bit more animalistic. It's all about like surviving out in the woods because he was like a pet before, and then he like meets other foxes and things like that. And like his learning how to become more of a wild fox while Peter tries to come and find him. So as this story goes along, Peter, he's walking through the woods, and he's doing a fine job for the most part. He's 12 years old though, and he didn't pack that much. At least like in my brain, I was like, holy crud, this kid's never gonna make it. And at first he wasn't going to, because he hurts his ankle, and I think he breaks his ankle. And he meets this lady that kind of lives in the woods, and at first he thinks that she's crazy, and her name is Vola. And I think that this is really where I connected with this book, was because she was a veteran of the war, and she lost her, like, the leg, like one of her legs below the knee. And like, I've never been traumatized by any of that, and I don't talk about this a lot on my channel, but I do, I am an active service member for the Air Force, and I have, been out to the desert and things like that. So it's just her viewpoint on what war was, and things like that, they kind of stuck with me. And I have read some other reviews on this book, and a lot of people say that it was fairly heavy-handed when it comes to the message of the book, and how humans destroy everything, and how war is, bad, and all that thing, and all those things. But I'd actually think it was a little bit more nuanced than that. Like, Vola would, when she talked about it, she she talked about like the necessity of some of the things that had to happen war-wise. And this isn't, I don't even think it's like our world. It's kind of like a version of our world, I guess you would say, back in like the 60s or something like that. So it's kind of like our world, but not quite. And she, just the way that she talked about it, and the way that she was trying to obviously like understand it in her own head, and like who she had become because of war, I thought was actually very well done. And I think that it is a topic that, if you're any part of it, it needs to be thought about. And I definitely was a part of it at points during my career. And I still got a little bit left, so. It just really, hit me hard. And a lot of people like really like the Fox part the most, and I do too. I like the Fox part a lot. It's just that part really hit me. I'd actually think that Vola was the best character in the book. Just her thoughts and the things that she was able to convey through her words to Peter as they grew. They actually bonded, and Peter was able to set off again eventually to go find Pax. And as the story progresses, you can kind of tell that there's like going to be a meeting between the two, and at the end, let's just say spoilers, because that's what this is. They are reunited. I won't go much further than that, but it was a beautiful story, I thought, for the most part. The plot was good. The writing was actually really well done. A lot of the times I was just like, this is supposed to be for middle graders. Awesome. Like, this was probably at the level that I was reading, like, when I was like a little kid, but at the same time, like, it was really well done. And I loved the characters. I mean, Peter, he's just a rambunctious 12-year-old kid who just does what he wants, apparently. And I think like back then it was a little bit of a different time, even if this is like an alternate, universe. It still felt very, I would say like Americanized, if you will. Very 60s, 50s, 60s, where kids just kind of like went out and did whatever they wanted, hiked through the woods and things like that. And the plot line, it was sufficient. The world building, it was sufficient. And I really did enjoy this book, and I'm going to give it, 4 gnomes out of 5. I think that it was really well done for a middle grade book. It really, hit home in some points for me, especially. And I could see it, being something, because at the end it even has like, here's questions you should talk with your kid about if you both read it together. So obviously it was meant to be read like by the adult and maybe the child. And I think that's a fun thing to do. So I really enjoyed reading this book. It's definitely out of my wheelhouse for the most part. It's not fantasy. It wasn't adult fantasy. It wasn't sci-fi. It was more of like a down-to-earth, like just like a boy and his fox kind of story. And I can get behind that, like it was a good time. And I'm really glad that I read it. So I hope you guys had fun listening to me. Keep reading and have a magical day.